Hello, everybody. Welcome to First Fridays. Just going to go live on my Instagram here separately. Hello, everybody. Welcome to First Fridays. Happy April Fools. Hope nobody got pranked too badly today. My kids are having a fun time trying to think of pranks for their dad last night. Don't know how successful we were, but anyway, welcome to First Fridays with McEntee Law. For those who haven't been here before or, it's been a while, basically what we try and do is once a month on the first Friday of the month, ideally, unless, there's an unforeseen circumstance, we try to go live and talk about immigration news and updates from, the previous few weeks. Over the past while, we've kind of rotated this around through the different immigration attorneys in our firm. So Catherine, I think, did the first one, and then Natalia, and then Elena. And now I'm back up. So I am happy to be here with everybody today. I just want to confirm on Instagram, I see some people jumping on. Can someone confirm that you can hear me okay? I have my phone positioned in a weird way, so I just want to make sure that everyone can hear me. So if someone could just comment or give a thumbs up, and hopefully everybody on the other platforms can hear us too. We're streaming from StreamYard, okay? Getting a couple of thumbs up. Thanks, Shane. Good to know that people can hear. Thank you. More thumbs up. Everyone can hear me. Good. And so we're streaming from Instagram and also on I think LinkedIn and Facebook and a few other platforms. I'm also sporting our new McEntee Law swag that we got for our team. We're all very excited about our new merch. And yeah, just happy to be here, even though we're expecting snow in Chicago tomorrow, which is crazy, but I guess that's April. So, but happy to be here. We are also doing a team outing this evening. We're going painting, sip and paint at a studio. So we're all excited for that. We're going to be doing some webinars over the next, I think, few months in relation to options if you didn't get selected in the H-1B lottery, which I'll discuss. Also, discussing things about startup visas. We will also be doing a webinar with the Women's Bar Association of Illinois. Natalia is going to be on talking about our assistance with Afghanistan and the crisis in Ukraine in relation to cases that we've been working on and assistance that we've been giving. And there's, some great other colleagues will be there with us. So we'll share some details on that. And so here today, the format of today's kind of chat will be, I'll just discuss some news that has happened over the past month, give some updates in relation to various pieces of immigration news. And then I'm going to answer some questions that have come in previously. If you have questions, feel free to pop them in the chat. A couple of caveats. Number one, obviously, if you're posting them in the chat, they're public, so people will see them. So don't put anything confidential there. Number two, I am an immigration attorney, but likely not your attorney. If you're our client, feel free to email me directly for advice, get in touch with us that way. So I can't give you specific legal advice that people should rely on. I can give some general information in relation to, some of the questions, but as always, you really need to contact an attorney for specific advice in relation to your situation. Okay, so some couple of bits of immigration news. The H-1B cap, some people will be familiar with this. This is an annual lottery registration period and then lottery that is done. So the registration period was the first 18 days in March. So we have finished that period. And then from all the cases that were submitted in the registration period, the government conducts a lottery to see which cases get the opportunity to be filed. So that is finished for now. So last weekend and earlier on this week, they I see some questions coming in. I will get to that later. Thank you for asking them. So for the H-1B lottery, they conducted the registration. They let people know of the cases that were selected. And now it's the preparation and filing stage. This is an annual thing. There's 65,000 plus around 20,000 for US master recipients, specifically for them. So a lot of people will not have been selected. I mean, some people obviously will have been. But we don't know how many cases they got as of now, so we're not sure what the odds were at selection. We certainly seem to have gotten a higher than normal selection in our firm. Catherine in particular, the attorney with us, they were divided up amongst a few attorneys, but Catherine's rate was unreal. Like, it was much higher than average, and it is random, but Ray, one of the other attorneys here, my brother and colleague, was calling Catherine the H1B lottery whisperer because of her high rates of selection. So it's great news, obviously, for those clients selected. We're going into the preparation stage now. If you did get selected in the lottery, you should work with your attorney to see about filing deadlines, and if there's any reason why you might need to get that filed as soon as possible. For students who are on optional practical training, people who are working on a work permit, there may be a reason why they need to get the case filed as soon as they can. They have 90 days, but for some people, it would be recommended that they file sooner. So just keep that in mind. Then for other people who didn't get selected, as part of our service for people who we do the lottery registration for, we will be preparing a kind of non-selection summary of options for people. So perhaps get in touch with, if you're our client, we will be getting that to you over the next few weeks. If you've worked with an attorney, maybe get in touch with them or somebody else, about options for, alternative options to the H1B. One thing to keep in mind about the H1B, last year the government did, I think, 3 lotteries, so they may do more later on this summer if they don't get enough to meet their statutory cap. So stay tuned to see about that. Okay, so that's H1Bs. On to the next situation in relation to Ukrainian refugees. So we have been very disappointed in the, I think, lack of immediate options for Ukrainian citizens. Also, we saw this with Afghanistan too, in terms of refugees and just overall the Biden administration's kind of acceptance of refugees. It's been pretty heartwarming to see other European countries, Poland in particular, what they have done to accept refugees immediately. Ireland too. Personally, I have, spoken to people who have assisted Ukrainian refugees in Ireland, and they're coming in, they're immediately getting work authorization and accommodation. Here in the US, we're trying to figure out what options people have, because it can be, unless you have a visa or able to make an asylum claim, it's just a hard thing to navigate. Natalia, an attorney in our firm who is from Russia originally, has been unbelievable in advising people in relation to this. She's also presenting with the Women's Bar Association to talk about, just options and things. But as of now, what we know is that the US will agree to take in 100,000 Ukrainian refugees. They're going to be focusing on, I believe, resettling people with family in the US. There will be a focus on protecting most vulnerable refugees, such as members of the LGBTQI+ community. And so that's one thing. Also, there was a TPS designation, temporary protected status designation for Ukraine. That's for people who are physically in the US as of a certain date, and also for Afghanistan later. But I guess there are other countries that should also be given TPS designation, and that has provoked ongoing conversations in relation to just the treatment of all, just migrants across the board, and in particular, I think the disparate treatment of Black and brown migrants, and what are we doing for people. There's other countries that are deserving too. We obviously are not trying to take away from anybody getting protections from various countries, but I think it's the advocacy to try to get more for other people too. So there's Alan Orr, the president of AILA, has been phenomenal in relation to speaking out in relation to this in particular. And there's some great MSNBC clips of him just talking about this in a real succinct way and sharing some statistics that I think are pretty eye-opening. So I would encourage you to look up some of his videos through AILA. I've been sharing them on my Twitter as well. Okay, so also this kind of, I guess, coincides with the Title 42, which is the COVID restrictions at the border. There's been some news reports of Ukrainian refugees being able to come in. Title 42 was the Trump era policy that prevented that. It was under the guise of health, COVID related, like it's controversial, like health authority that was preventing people from coming into the US to claim asylum. It is going to be lifted in May, I believe. But it has been horrific, and we're of the opinion that it's not really based on public health. It was a tool that was used to be really cruel to immigrants, because obviously COVID doesn't discriminate based on your immigration status. And so that is being lifted, and it is a long time coming, and so many advocates have been really pushing for that to be lifted for a long time, and so that's happening. The US is going to be scaling back immigration detention centers. There's ICE is going to be discontinuing use of certain of them in one in particular in Alabama, and maybe some in Florida. There's been allegations of abuse and mistreatment, and so there's some news in relation to that. Other big news that we heard, which I think this is going to be important for people across the board, really, regardless of the type of immigration process that you're going through. But the USCIS, which is the immigration agency responsible for adjudicating cases, any kind of petition-based case, that's a marriage-based green card or employment-based stuff, that's the agency here in the US that reviews those. The processing times at the USCIS pretty much across the board are crisis level. And the USCIS has acknowledged these, really, I think, unacceptable processing times. And they made an announcement a week or two ago in relation to that, maybe it was last week, in relation to this. But they basically acknowledge the long processing times, and they have set some reduction goals, some kind of time periods that they want to aim for with certain cases. They are also going to be expanding premium processing, which is a long awaited thing for certain cases. So, excuse me, there was a bill that was passed, and actually I think it was signed into law by the Trump administration prior to, the Biden administration coming in, but we've been waiting for this to be implemented, and it expands premium expedited processing to certain categories that are not yet that were not eligible before. So this is in relation to like national interest waivers, multinational executive green cards, so other categories that have not been able to use that, work permits as well. So this is pretty exciting news, and it's we have been looking for this type of announcement for quite a while. We don't know exactly when this is coming in. I believe they said they're going to let us know in May what the timelines look like in relation to processing times for the premium processing. It's going to be like a phased approach in relation to this. So I think also dependents or I-539 cases for requesting different statuses, they will be able to also get premium processing. And yeah, the work permits, which is really important for people too. So there have been some other changes in relation to work permits. Certain ones are now automatically extended. Certain people don't need work permits in addition to their visas, certain spouses of E's and L's. So there's a lot of changes in relation to work permits. So that would be something that people should pay close attention to as well. And then just watch this space for news in relation to when the rollout of the premium processing is going to happen. It's very exciting. I mean, obviously the goal would be that nobody should have to pay these, large fees to premium process. And I guess that's another conversation to be had later. But we are excited that it's just been on the cards for over a year, and now it hopefully will be soon. So stay tuned for more information in relation to that. Some other news. I'm just going to take a sip of coffee. Welcome everybody who's jumped on Instagram, and excuse me for everyone joining from other platforms. Welcome to First Fridays, where we're sharing immigration news and updates. I've just gone through some immigration news over the past while. At the moment, I'm going to talk about the startup visa, and this is a huge baby of mine. I do a lot of advocacy work in relation to startup immigration. There is a big push right now for a startup visa bill. Representative Lofgren had a piece of legislation which was called the Like Act, the Let Immigrants Kickstart the Economy. And that has been put into the House bill of the America Competes Act, which is pretty exciting. But obviously we need it to pass through the Senate now. And so it's a little surprising to people when they hear that America does not have an actual startup visa for immigrant entrepreneurs. There is an option that's like a parole type program. I can talk later about why that's not really working right now. But the startup visa bill would be fantastic. And just to give you some stats, is that like foreign-born immigrant entrepreneurs have been a huge driver of the economic success in the US, despite the lack of immigration options for them. About more than 50% of unicorn startups that are valued at, I think, over $1 billion or more were founded or co-founded by immigrants. They've also played a crucial role in the pandemic. Immigrants have, both here in the US and overseas. And 43% of Fortune 500 companies were founded by first or second generation immigrants. And I mean, there's just loads of stats to support why we would need and why would we want to support immigrant entrepreneurs. I see it every day. I mentor and I'm involved in 1871 and lots of different startup incubators, ecosystems in the US. And we really, really need a startup visa bill to be passed. So hopefully, if you're here and you have your local senator, you can get in touch with them. This should ideally be non-controversial. But I don't think anything with immigration is ever non-controversial. There is no reason why this couldn't be a partisan thing. I mean, we can all work together, whatever side of the aisle you're on, to support something like this, which would ultimately support innovation, create American jobs. It's a no-brainer. And it's for people who would have raised significant US-based venture capital or a significant grant. So it would be really for those who have demonstrated high potential. So I hope you all will join me in advocating for that, and stay tuned for more info. But it's the America Competes Act has a startup visa provision that we would be hopefully encouraging everyone to support, should you be so inclined, but lots of stats to show. Okay, we have a bunch of questions. So we've wrapped up kind of the news and updates part of this, and I'm going to jump into some questions with the caveat that, again, I'm not your attorney, not specific legal advice, but I'm going to just go through some of these and give some general info. Okay, somebody said, what's the easiest way for an Irish person to get a US visa? They missed the graduate visa, which is an Irish J1. So, I mean, this is something that I can't really answer because I don't know anything about your background. But the Irish graduate visa is a variation of the J1 intern visa. There is another type of J1 visa, the J1 trainee visa. It requires a pre-placement and a pre-job and all that sorted out ahead of time. That might be an option for you. But something to consider. Unfortunately, I just don't know enough about your situation. Otherwise, if you were to get a job with a company that had an E2 treaty and you were Irish and you could maybe go on that, I mean, that might be an option as well. But yeah, I think perhaps you might need an individual consultation to assess your options. A lot of the options are going to be based on you having an employer, in the US as well, though. So keep that in mind. Or going to school here, getting a student visa. Any advice for Irish registered nurses in the US about nursing? Yeah, I mean, there's a big shortage of nurses in the US. There's been a long recognized labor shortage. So there are some staffing agencies and other places that support visa and green card applications for nurses. So I would look into that. Definitely recommend that you look into that. There are some things that you need to figure out in relation to getting licenses and stuff like that, but there is a well-recognized labor shortage, so there potentially is a good immigration option for you. It might take a while, but something to consider. Somebody said, next question, I want to move to the US and I'm studying healthcare. Could I get a visa this way? Okay, so it depends what you want to do. Do you want to come and study? Well, perhaps then you look at different student visa options that are available. If you want to come and work afterwards, you probably, or instead of coming on a student visa, you'd be looking at one of the work options. And, there's lots of potential options. Normally, people would have maybe one or two, or, just depends on your situation. So you'd kind of need to explore that individually. Somebody's asking, do you need to have a job lined up for a visa before? I mean, it depends on your type of, most visas do require a job to be lined up. The J1 graduate visa, you should work directly with the J1 agency in relation to that to speak about the requirements. I know before they used to not require pre-placement. But the Rian Centre is one that I can think of offhand. That's the Irish Immigration Centre in Boston. I believe they handle the processing of the Irish graduate J1 visa. I would talk to them about specifics in relation to the placements. Okay, next question. How long is the EB1C taking? Some say 12 to 24 months. Will it have premium processing in the next 60 days? Okay, so this is the multinational executive or manager green card. This was one of the options that I mentioned that previously did not have an option to do premium processing, but I believe that that's included in the expansion of premium processing that was announced through the USCIS. I don't know how soon that's going to be implemented. I'm just going to triple check to see that it was. I know that, I believe the USCIS plans to begin this phased implementation of the premium processing by expanding premium processing to form I-140, requesting EB1 immigrant classification as a multinational executive or manager, or EB2 as a member of advanced degrees or exceptional, so national interest waivers. So, it says that that's part of their plan, but I don't know how long it's going to take them to get that. I don't know whether it would be done in the next 60 days. I doubt it, but I'm not sure. But otherwise, processing times, this varies depending on where your case. The processing times are very hard to figure out, for us to figure out, because the range is so wide, and so it's hard to know, where your case will lie in relation to that. I don't know how accurate they are. Sometimes a case comes in, much sooner than processing times, sometimes much later. It's just, it's very hard to predict, and that's why having some type of certainty with the premium processing, which would have a guaranteed time frame, is going to be phenomenal. So we're looking forward to that. Someone said their L1B got denied. It went through request for evidence and then got a notice of intent to deny and then was denied. Can we still appeal? So I think a better question is, should you appeal? Sometimes appeals just rubber stamp a prior denial, and you may actually have a better result at either refiling, so filing a new case if you felt like the denial was erroneous, you didn't agree with the basis of the denial. You may try to refile and try to see if you get a different result. I would talk to the attorney about the strategy. Otherwise, litigation is an option where the employer would sue the USCIS in federal court. That can be a strategy as well, depending on the basis of the denial. If we felt like it was erroneous and we thought we would have a good chance at litigation, that might be something. So appeals are, again, this is a very general statement. Normally, people don't like to appeal because you just rubber stamp the bad decision, and there may be a better option for you. So the best person, though, to advise on that is going to be the attorney who files the underlying L1B case. So I would talk to them. What's the current wait time for work and travel cards? Oh, $1 million question. I mean, it depends what the basis of your work and travel card is. There is and where it's being adjudicated. This range is just so broad that it's just impossible to even give you any type of concrete examples or, specifics, parameters. They're just so broad. I would say, marriage-based cases, sometimes what we're seeing at least is that people are getting their marriage-based green card interview scheduled before they even get their work and travel card issued. So, that means that the processing times for getting the case scheduled for interview and completion of the green card is actually faster than the work and travel card. So, it just depends on the basis of your green card. There's lots of different underlying basis of your green cards. So I would talk to your attorney and see, or you can check online. The USCIS processing times as well are available online, but I don't find that chart to be very helpful. So hi, everybody. There's lots of people jumping on. Welcome for those who are just joining. We're just going through some immigration related questions here. Somebody said they did not get selected in the H-1B option. Lottery? What are your next options? So keep in mind that they may do a second lottery later on this year. Otherwise, I just don't know enough about you to assess what your options are. Maybe a green card. Maybe your employer could sponsor you, or your prospective employer could sponsor you for a green card. It's not going to be something that's done, soon, though. It's a process, but, that could be an option. It depends where you're from. You may have a treaty specific option, such as the TN if you're from Canada or Mexico. If you are Australian, there's an E3 visa. So there's just a lot of variables here that, so you'd probably need a consultation in order to see, or maybe if you use an attorney to file the H-1B lottery registration, they may give you a summary of your options. That's what we do for our clients anyway. Is it possible to apply for your green card if you have an E-visa? Yes, it is possible, but there is some strategy involved. So you need to talk to an attorney who'd be doing it and see, there's also some travel limitations going from an E to a green card. So you would have to, kind of see when you can and cannot travel, what type of green card you got, how long the process is going to take. So definitely something that you would have to discuss. But yes, in theory, it is absolutely possible. You just need to be aware of the limitations of the E2 in relation to having an intent to get a green card and travel and stuff like that. So some things. Okay, can you switch from an E2 to a spousal visa of a H-1B? Yes, you can. Again, I don't know. It's like, in theory, this is possible, but I don't know why you might want to do that. I guess if you don't have a choice, if your spouse is going on a H-1B, then you may have to go on the H-4. And the E2 spouse can work, though. The H-4 spouse cannot work unless the H-1B spouse is in the middle of the green card process and from a backlog country. So, there are advantages to being on the E2. There's also some disadvantages. So this is kind of a pros and cons situation that would probably best be discussed with the attorney. And you can kind of see how I can give some general info, can give you some guidelines, but really for specifically tailored advice about what you should do, I don't have all the information. So I would advise that whoever the attorney for the H-1B is, that you sit down and you talk to them and see, obviously, if you're here on a spousal visa, your status is dependent on your spouse's being the primary visa holder. So you don't really have a choice in that sense, but your spouse would have a choice. So, or may have a choice. So you could just discuss when should he or she go on the primary H-1B? Is there any, is that going to happen automatically in the US, or is it going to be something that you apply for a visa abroad? There's a few ways to structure the case. So they're the types of questions I would be asking. Somebody's asking, are we seeing interviews being waived at the embassy due to the backlogs, for example, L renewals? Yeah, so there is an interview waiver process that you can get. So if you're eligible, if you're applying in your home country and you've been to the US before and you haven't been refused, and you meet all the other requirements, you may be able to apply to get a renewed or even a first time visa stamp through the mail. So you might not even need to go in for an interview. This is great. And this is something that we as immigration attorneys really, really pushed for and advocated for a long time. So I would look to see if you're eligible for that. And if so, you may want to go down that route. It depends where you're applying as well. Certain posts are much faster than others in relation to processing times. Not going to name names, but certain posts are very slow. So I would explore if you're eligible to renew via mail. I would definitely look to see if you can do that. Okay, so some new questions that just came in today. Thanks, Katrina from our team is posting these questions here so I can see them. Thank you for doing that. Somebody's asking, what is the current wait on green card application for work sponsorship? So I think this is they're asking about the processing times for an employment-based green card. There are lots of different types of employment-based green cards. There's different processes. You heard me mention EB1 earlier, EB1C. That is the employment-based, is what the EB stands for. 1 is the first preference category and C is the subcategory. There's other types of categories. There's EB2, EB3, there's different subcategories. So it depends what type of green card you're on, right? Or what your path looks like. Not everybody's going to be able to get an EB1C. That's only for multinational executives or managers who worked abroad for a related company for a year before coming into the US. The EB1A is the O1 version of the extraordinary ability visa. It's the extraordinary ability green card. That's a different process to, let's say, a recruitment type green card, which is a perm process. That's an EB2 or EB3. So the processing times and the stages vary depending on what green card you're on. So it just really depends. Certain green cards you can premium process parts of it, others you can't. So it really depends which one you'd be in. What's the average wait for a marriage-based visa at the moment? She's saying they're saying that they understand the processing times are very long with the USCIS. Yeah, processing times are long. What we're finding though is for cases where the person's in the US and it's the I-130, the marriage petition and the green card application. As I mentioned, some of those cases are actually getting scheduled for interview before they even get their work and travel card. So I think we just had we had a couple of interviews and we're seeing some more interview notices coming in. We've actually seen a good few recently for people that were filed. Again, it depends what location you're in, but the Chicago-based ones that we're seeing from cases that were filed in October. So that's not that long, and it seems to be faster than the work and travel card processing times. But it just depends. If you're doing just the I-130 part of it, which is, the marriage petition and the person is abroad, that is taking quite a while because for some reason the standalone I-130s are just taking a lot longer. And then there's some other stages where you need to go through the National Visa Center and go and get your visa interview abroad. So, but if you're not if the foreign national spouse is not in the US, they're not going to be able to go through the adjustment green card process here in the US. So, you don't really necessarily have a choice if they're not here. If they're here, then you will likely go for that adjustment process if you're eligible, which would have to be determined by an attorney. But, we're at least seeing those adjustment green card, marriage-based green cards be done in a faster manner than they were pre-COVID. They were actually like 4 or 5 months. It was like pretty quick to get the whole interview and everything scheduled, and it's just a little bit longer than that. So it's almost back to, in my experience, kind of pre-COVID. Hopefully that's helpful. What's the current processing times for O1s? O1s are my forte. I love O1s. It's the extraordinary ability visa. The good thing about the O1s is that they can be premium processed, which is where you pay a fee. Now it's a hefty $2,500 filing fee, but you get a finite. There's a defined adjudication period of 2 weeks when you file it with the premium processing. Without it, I'm not sure. It depends what service center your case is going to. I'd say the vast majority of our clients, overwhelming majority, do premium processing to get that petition adjudicated. And then if you're outside the US, you need to go and get your visa stamp, which is another process that you either mail in if you're eligible for the mail in, or go for an in-person interview. And it depends on what post you're going to. Some consular posts have more availability than others. So it just depends. But the thing about the O1s, it does have that that option to at least premium process. So there's a little bit more there's more certainty with that option as well. You know that within 2 weeks of filing the case, you're either going to get your case adjudicated or they're going to issue a request for evidence. So, but it is a defined timeline, at least for that initial review. EB2 also in the cards. Do you think it would be this year? I'm not sure. The EB2 is a green card, so I'm not actually sure what the question is. I think maybe the person had asked another question. I'm just not sure about that. Perhaps asking about processing times. I don't know. It depends what type of EB2 process you're going through. Is the US close to approving Irish citizens for the excess E3 visas? Okay, this is something that I've spent years working on and advocating for. This is a long-standing advocacy measure by the Irish government to try to advocate for like a specific immigration option for Irish citizens. Other countries have these treaties and specific options, like Australia with the E3, Chile, Singapore, Mexico, Canada. So there's a precedent there for other countries having it. And so this would have to go through Congress. And so I'm not sure where that stands right now. It's, I don't want to appear disillusioned, but we came very, very close one year to getting this passed, and it was blocked by one vote from one senator, and myself and then Irish Senator Billy Lawless were together actually in Ireland working on some things when we heard about this, and it was just before Christmas. And so it was devastating for everybody, given how close we were, and it needed to pass by unanimous consent, and it was just one vote from Senator Cotton, whose name I will always remember. And so, that was a few years ago. We've just come very close and it hasn't gone through. So we're always optimistic. We're always not just optimistic, but also take action to try to change the system. That's actually a big piece of our firm's core value, is optimism, which is, how we define that is like believing the system can be better, but also taking action and doing advocacy and awareness and storytelling and those types of things to try to make the system better. So I always believe that, we can certainly get Congress or, kind of show Congress why some of these things should pass, whether it's the startup visa, the E3 visa, immigration reform across the board, to try to share the positive stories of immigration, to try to counteract some of the negative, false kind of narratives that you hear. So I don't know how to answer this question by saying, are we close? We've been very close before, and it's just hasn't been close enough. So I don't know how close you can ever get unless it's passed, So I know that there's a renewed push and there's advocacy, and this thing would be a reciprocal visa for US citizens to go to Ireland. So it would be great if it did get passed, and it would have no impact on the Australian allotment of E3 visas, because it would be the whatever surplus they hadn't used in the previous year. So we would only ever get those extra visas that had already not been used by Australia. So it wouldn't impact them at all. And as far as I was aware, there was never an kind of an objection from Australia in relation to kind of permitting Ireland to avail of those excess, the surplus there in the E3. So then I'm almost down to my final question. Thanks for sticking with me today. Is it possible to get premium processing for a marriage-based visa green card? No, unfortunately, there's no premium processing for family-based options. There may be premium processing for the work permit part of it, which is going to come in, I think, hopefully, we'll know in May when those premium processing may come in for the work permit, but there is no premium processing for marriage-based green cards. It may be possible to get expedited processing if you can show like severe financial loss, severe, humanitarian reasons, so it potentially is possible. Some posts you can file directly if there's like emergency circumstances. They had expanded some of that for people trying to leave Ukraine, where they were in the marriage-based green card, or else they had an option to get a green card through a family member. So, but beyond those kind of exceptional circumstances, unfortunately, there's no premium processing for the actual marriage-based petition. So let me see, I think I might have answered everybody's questions generally. So hopefully this was helpful. Thank you all for jumping on. It's great to be back on First Friday. I'm excited that it's hopefully, spring-ish, allegedly, but not feeling very spring-ish in Chicago. I'm excited for the weekend. Hopefully you all are too. Looking forward to going out tonight with our team to do some sipping and painting in Chicago. So yeah, so thanks for joining. Feel free to, comment, share, whatever else in relation to this. And we will be having our next First Friday, the first Friday of May. Not sure who's going to be up for that one. Stay tuned for more immigration news. You can follow our newsletter, sign up for a newsletter on our website, follow us on all the various forms of social media, and look for, some webinars in relation to other immigration options. And thank you very much for joining us. I'm going to sign off, and take care. Have a great weekend, everybody. Bye-bye.